Did you know Dump City has a pattern in it? See? I pieced it all together. Hey everyone, Brento here. Welcome to another episode of Dump City. I'm using a new weapon here I found. Check this out. It's a blowtorch. Elon's got a blowtorch. Isn't it amazing? Perfect for a marauder. This is quite an effective skill. I had some physical immune monsters I was fighting last week, and I couldn't kill some of them, but I made this here, and having no problem with it. Check it out here. See? It's called Scorching Ray, or Billionaire Blowtorch, whatever you want to call it. What's on the show? We're going to do some gem basics to start off. We're going to do an alternate ending to the Shawshank Redemption, a modern ending to it. And then I'm going to go over some best gems in this episode. But before we get too into that, let's go over the item of the week. And it's this Balefire. That's the item of the week. And I'm going to go with this shield here. This Thousand Teeth Timu is the runner-up. It's kind of a nice combo. And I think it's a good alternate weapon combo for fighting physically immune bosses. So we'll see how that works. Anyways, before we get too into gems this week, let's talk about more tips for noobs. So one of the first things you might want to consider when doing your mapping is what maps you actually do. For example, some of them have properties that reflect damage. So put them in the King's March maps and see how your NPCs do with that instead. Another cool thing, we'll just go over here to the hideout. And this is something, if you're a noob, you probably haven't discovered this, but this will be very helpful. If you go over to Cassia over here, she has this ability to anoint items. So if you've been getting these oils here, see this tea oil, sepia oil, you can actually take an amulet, put it here, and then put each one of these in here, and basically get a passive skill that you might not be able to reach on your passive skill tree. Let's go to the website here. Check out the passive tree here. I'm over here, but if I wanted to do, let's say, Discord Artisan over here, right there, okay? Notice how if you go to the website and hover over the skill, it shows you the oils you need to get this on your amulet. So bit of a tip there that I think there's over 100 different recipes, but basically I think every single notable skill on the tree can be acquired, even if you're nowhere close to it. Interestingly enough, in the game itself though, if I go to the passives and do the same thing, this might get fixed in a future update, but it doesn't show me the oils in the game. So a bit of a tip there. Another tip here is if you notice let's say you're doing Blight and these oils are lagging up your machine, you can always hit F1 and you can see what your bottleneck is. You know, I would recommend going into the settings here. If you do hit settings and go to options, and you notice that see the display settings here? If you're doing Blight or any kind of mechanic that's really making your video card chug, I would highly recommend adjusting these to make it a little bit more playable. A few more tips here. As you level up, keep stockpiling those crafting materials. You're not high enough level to craft something serious yet, but you might want to have some Eldritch Ichor and some Ember. Stockpile these. These will give you some implicits later. Don't be spending these yet because most of the things you're crafting right now aren't going to be good enough to justify it. And one final tip for noobs is to consider doing your maps in order of difficulty, hardest to easiest between levels. Right now, Elon's level 84, fairly new, like 3 bars into 84. And I'm going to do my maps in this order. I have the toughest tier I got right now is a tier 6 rare. And then I'm going to slowly work my way into easier content. Because if I die, I'd rather die at the start of the level than at the end of the level and lose all that XP. So there you go. There's some tips for noobs. Anyways, let's get on to the main topic of the show. Why you click this video? It's about gems. So let's start off with some gem basics. The first thing you're going to want to do is when you're looking at your gems and realizing their full potential, always hit Alt to see the added effects from quality. See here, the added effect of this one is cursed enemies have a up to 5% chance to grant an endurance charge when hit. The goal is to get your gems to level 20 and then get them to level 20 quality afterwards. So you don't necessarily want to do that with every gem because the added effect from quality is not always useful. So this is a big procedure. You got to do this with pretty much all your gems, but some of them might not be worth it. Like with me, for clarity, it adds extra area of effect, and I'm playing solo self-found, so it's pretty much useless to me to make that a higher quality gem. So just always check what you're going to get from a higher quality gem is the first gem basic, I would say. The next basic is any vendor. Once you do get a level 20 gem, you want to go to a vendor, you put it in there. Okay, we don't have any level 20s here, and you add one Gemcutter's Prism, and that will give you the same gem back once you're level 20. You see it doesn't work yet, but once this will become a level 1 gem at 20 quality. So that'll save you 19 of these prisms, okay? And then you got to start the leveling process over again. So that's kind of the objective with what you're doing with gems. If you've played a season or two, you're already going to know something about this. Another thing too is you want to make sure you have 6 linked body armor at this point. This is usually where you're going to put your main attack skill is on your body armor. And the reason it's a little bit better to get 6 linked armor or 6 linked armor over a 6 linked weapon is that your weapon's main focus is the damage it does. Okay, so getting 6 link on a high DPS weapon is probably not going to statistically happen. You're going to have to get it on your body armor, but it would be nice to get it on a weapon as well. Okay, you'll notice too that there's, as mentioned in previous episodes, there's natural colors to the gems. So if you have a strength and int based armor, the socket colors are going to be rolled naturally blue or red. It's unnatural to get a green. Okay, if you need an unnatural color, I would recommend doing is go to your crafting bench and using a recipe like this where you put this in here and you specify at least one green socket. Okay, it costs a little bit more to do this, but green won't. If you want at least one green, like I'd be happy with 2 or 3 greens on this armor. So at least one green would be the minimum you'd want for that. When you're leveling up too, you'll notice too look how much int, strength, and dexterity I have. It's extremely high. The reason I do that is so that if, let's say, I wanted this blue gem here, and I wanted to make it level 20, I'm going to have to get to a very high level of intelligence, and then I can restart it again with less intelligence on my gear. Okay, so you typically want to start with attributes early, but later remove them once you get a more fine-tuned build. Maybe you don't want any blue gems, maybe you don't want any green gems, maybe you don't want any red gems at all in your final build, but you're going to be thinking about that when you're choosing your gems. You don't want to be having unneeded stats that don't help your character at all if it's not for your class. Let's say you've got your gem converted to level 20 and it's 20 quality. Then you can throw a Val Orb on it. Okay, this is just another basic thing. Anyone who's played a season or two understands this. And there's 4 outcomes that can happen to your gem when you throw a Val Orb on it. The one thing you're hoping for is it gains another level. So you get a 2120 gem this way. Another option is it will add up to plus or minus 20 quality. If you're 20 to begin with, that increases the odds of it going above 20. But you could get up to 23 quality when you throw it on a 2020 gem. And the other 2 outcomes is it becomes the Val variant of it. Like, let's say you had haste, you could get a Val haste out of it. And finally, it could just be corrupted and nothing else. Putting a Vile Orb on it, it's going to corrupt it no matter what. So just keep that in mind. You could ruin your gem, and that's another reason why you should be always leveling gems on your, background items here, on your alternate gear sets, because you're trying to get those extra powerful gems. You can't have multiple golems, you can't have multiple guards, and you can't have multiple curses on most monsters. Okay, there are some skills that let you get around that, but for the most part, you're just basing the best there is. So choose the right gem that's the right color that will complement things. You don't necessarily are going to have the option of choosing the best gem, but choose a gem that fits in the color slot that's pretty good. A few other things. Hexes versus marks. These are both curses, okay? So you see Warlord's mark is a curse and a mark, but you'll see vulnerability is a curse and a hex. What's the difference? The hex applies to an area and the mark applies to a monster. So, but they're both curses and one will overwrite the other. So keep that in mind. You can't have these. Part of this gems basic tutorial here is to, if you spot something you're doing wrong, just from the basics here, you maybe fix it up a little bit and maybe you'll get a few more levels further up. Then finally, Balefire Opal Scepter. It has a skill built right into it. I don't have Scorching Ray as a gem in here. There is a Scorching Ray gem, but this is effectively a level 25 skill with 3 support gems in it. So, and there's other items that you can get, and there's even rarer items. Go to Craft of Exile, where basically you can add support skills on an item. So just keep that in mind, that these things exist, and you can get some, pretty powerful combos that way. It's not the be all and end all, but something to be aware of. Get all 8 of your skill points in your Ascendancy as soon as possible, because you also get to see what kind of rare gems you're going to get. You're not going to be able to farm every single combo of Transfigured Gem there is, but you might find something that you could design a build with that works best for you. There is a lot of RNG in this game, and the sooner you roll the dice and know what numbers you're playing with, the better, and then you can plan accordingly. You have to do these here, these blueprints here, to get access to Trarthan gems. And Awakened gems require you to do some late game content. I wouldn't worry too much about that, because unless you do everything else right, you're not going to get those upgrades. They're basically the same as regular gems, but they're Awakened variants. And finally, if you see any references to Anomalous, Divergent, and Phantasmal gems, those were available to 3.23. There's still a lot of information on that out there. So if you're wondering, how do I get these? It's just old news, and Google hasn't erased all the history like it does with other things like socialism. Anyways, that's the gem basics. If you have any questions or other things to add to that, please add to the comments. But before we get into some more into the best gems, which is another reason you want to watch this show, is to see how I rank the gems here. Is we got to do a little interlude here. We got to do the topic of the show, and that's the alternate modern ending to the Shawshank Redemption. Now, here's a spoiler. If you've not seen the movie, just skip to the next chapter, because I am going to spoil the movie right here. Okay, so the end where he gets out and he crawls through the sewer and escapes, and maybe I didn't give you enough warning and I ruined the movie for you. In the modern version, they'd set up a bunch of cameras for it, and they just catch him and throw him right back in. And the warden's son would end up a Silicon Valley entrepreneur. That's how I would do it. That's the modern version of Shawshank Redemption. Anyways, that's that. And now on to the best gems. Okay, so the information I'm going to give you here on my opinion of gems, this is based on building a Templar, a Witch, and now a Marauder. So I haven't done a Poison Arrow Boazon yet, so it's not going to be perfect in terms of those kinds of skills. But I think you'll still learn quite a bit from what I think are the best gems to use for your character. So first off, if you ever get one of these, a Val Haste, I screwed up this one here. I started leveling it up. If it's not, unless you're like a Dex class, you might not want to level it up, because you can either be faster cast speed, or faster attack speed, basically for free every now and then with this gem. So I would suggest this is a good gem. I think a lot of people, if you have the fortune of finding one, maybe you could buy one in a trade league. Uh, this is a good gem. It's used in a lot of builds, as useful in many different ways. In terms of travel skills, I actually put quite a bit of thought of this. Now I've tried at least a dozen different ones, and I think Frost Blink is the best travel skill there is. It's just nice and fast. It freezes enemies around you. It adds some chill so that they can't really catch you after. So of all the travel skills I've tried, I'm just going to say right now, Frost Blink is probably the best. I enjoyed it the most. The next best, I'd go with Leap Slam, which is really great for Marauder class right now. It lets you jump onto ledges, jump down off ledges, similar to Blink. So I'm going to say that's the second best one. And if you were looking for a green travel skill, I'd probably go with Dash. I was testing this yesterday. You can jump over walls with Dash. Again, it's not going to do much damage, but it just lets you move around and navigate much better. So these would be the, if you're looking for a blue travel skill, go with Frost Blink, go with Leap Slap for red, and Dash for green. These are, I think, are of each color the best. Other honorable mentions, Flame Dash is very nice. It adds a lot of fire damage for a blue spell. And Lightning Warp, I believe, lets you move quite long distances. It might be the fastest moving gem there is. But if you're doing fire damage, you might want to go with, Flame Dash instead. Just, I haven't used Lightning Warp extensively. In terms of red spells, Shield Charge is very nice. The only problem is you need a shield to use it. And Withering Step's also very nice because it grants elusive. It gives you 15% chance to avoid all damage, which is ridiculous. And then you gain phasing, which lets you if you ever get stuck by a pack of monsters and they're just beating the crap out of you, this lets you go through them. So Withering Step's also very nice. You also got to factor the duration of these and the cooldowns. So I consider that in my choices of best travel skills. Another popular gem that almost all builds have, no matter the class, is cast 1 damage taken. So you might have this on your build right now and you're like, okay, this is a great, I got this with Steel Skin, and you got it all figured out. You got bleed immunity with Steel Skin, so you can't lose, right? But you can put any guard skill on with cast 1 damage taken. So I would recommend Steel Skin if you're a non-armor class. It's pretty good, especially if you need the immunity to bleeding. But if you do have armor, a lot of the pros take Molten Shell. A lot of the top builds. Again, I'm part of the data I'm using to rank these gems is I'm just looking at the top builds and seeing what they're using. And I think almost everyone has Molten Shell of the armor classes. So that's up there. And Immortal Call is really great too. If you don't have as much armor and you're not at the physical cap and you're using endurance charges, Immortal Call could be the best. I've found situations where all 3 of these are best, and it varies. So don't be married to one of these guard skills. Just pick the one that you think is going to match best with your current state of gear. And like Molten Shell, if you don't have much armor, it's not that great, for example. But for a Marauder, it's perfect. Okay. Other things you can trigger with when you take damage. It's not just the guard skill. So this is something I didn't understand right away either. I was just had a cast 1 damage taken, and I had one of these guard skills with it. But you can trigger things like golems, Wave of Conviction, Frost Bombs, and Cold Snap. These can all trigger when you take damage, but most importantly, you can also trigger a curse. Okay, so quite regularly I have a curse and a guard skill on cast 1 damage taken. The reason I don't have that set up right now is because my shield has this ability that I put Enfeeble, which is a curse on hit, so I don't need to apply another curse. Okay, but if you don't have something that's giving you a free curse on hit like that, you'll You can throw one on with cast when damage taken. There's other ways to get the curse to activate, but that's one that does trigger with cast when damage taken. And just, you can't use every gem with it. You'll have to run some experiments. Just go put one gem on, try it on some low-level monsters, see if it's triggering, and run experiments if you're not sure if it's going to work. Auras and heralds reserve mana, okay? So what you want to consider is taking skill points. If you have a lot of these on, that reduce the reservation cost of them. And these exist everywhere, okay? This mana mastery here, 12% increased mana reservation efficiency. That basically reserves less mana when you have an aura or herald. So you want to keep that in mind when using auras. But what auras are the best ones, right? So I've been doing some research, and there's 3 of them that are kind of interesting. Most of them will take 25, 35, 50% of your mana and reserve it. But there's 3 of them that use a fixed number. So if you have enough mana, the percentage of mana it's going to reserve will actually be much lower, and you'll be able to stack other auras and other heralds with it. So the 3 unique auras in that sense, at least at the time of in version 3.27, is Vitality, Clarity, and Precision. Okay? So if you can use these benefits from what you see on screen here, I would recommend them. Vitality might not be too useful if you don't have any life on your character. If you're a Chaos Inoculation build, maybe this isn't useful, but maybe Clarity is very useful, right? So these use fixed numbers. So if you have a big enough mana pool, this lets you put more and more auras. And there's other skills that will let you basically get more damage by the number of auras, especially when you stack mana reservation. The best aura, I would say, is, I don't know. Just whatever's best for your class. It's so class specific, I can't really say anything. If I was to say the best curse, I'm going to go with Enfeeble on hit. It just gets you through some of the toughest situations, and I would I'd always have that available just in case. There's other variants that reduce the damage you can take, but that one's it just makes the uniques and the rares gimped, which is kind of what you want. Imagine if you had a bunch of mana reservation and you have 5 different heralds on you. Okay? You're getting basically 75% increased damage, so it's an interesting combo to consider. There's this Righteous Fire, you might have heard of this. There's Sacrifice Support. There's another one called the Dark Pact of Trarthan, and there's just a Dark Pact variant. And Reap, and these all sacrifice life for damage. So these are based on a lot of the top characters out there. However, I would highly recommend you use a guide whenever you sacrifice life to do damage, because there's protections available that keep you alive. They require life stacking to work, frankly. You need a lot of life for it to work, but they are very popular. In terms of unusual gems out there that are worth noting, again, there's so many out there, and they're always going to change from season to season, so I'm not going to go over everyone, but I'm just going over the ones that in 3 seasons of play that I keep coming across and I think are, just be aware of. Another one's this cast when stun support. So I just discovered this recently, and I was watching another YouTuber, this guy who plays without pants or something, and he shared his build. He didn't go into the details of it, and there was some other commenter who got angry at him for not crediting the source of it. But the too long didn't read version of it is that cast when stun, I never noticed this in my first season or 2, and again, if you're a noob, is look at the cooldown time of that, 0.1 seconds. And this doesn't require to use an instant spell either. So if I were to combo that with, say, Wave of Conviction, which has no cooldown, and it has a 0.7 second cast, then I could effectively cast it 7 times faster if something were constantly stunning me. But the other thing I never noticed this on too is if I block a stunning hit. So if you have low resistance to stun and you block everything, this will trigger as well. So you can kind of break like that's the reason why some of these people use it. That's kind of, they might nerf that. Don't, if this is the year 2030, this might not be true anymore, but it seems like you can game the system a little bit by using the block mechanic in combination with that cooldown time. There aren't many others that have a cooldown time like that, so this is an interesting build enabling one. Again, consult a guide if you're going to use something like this, because being chain stunned is probably not good. Another one that is very popular now, and I don't know if this existed when I first started playing, is this auto exertion. So basically this just casts spells based on a reservation cost of the spell, and then it just casts them in order, okay? So you can't put too many on there unless you have enough mana for it. But it basically lets you do that with war cries. You can't use every spell with this. That's the only negative with it. And the reservation does give it limits, but auto exertion I think was on almost every top build I looked at. And it's a really great one to consider for your build. So if you don't have that in there, I would consider looking into it. And then finally, this automation one is really cool too. It's very similar to auto exertion. However, they have to be instant, but they don't reserve mana, so that's a cool combo as well. So this sort of lets you get your various buffs, your war cries, or whatever you want to get going, set up without you having to map keys to do all that stuff to maximize your damage. So those are some interesting ones. A few other things in terms of brands at the time of doing this episode or doing this season. When I look at brands, I can't say that there are any brands that I have found useful any season I've done. Okay, that could change. If you have a brand build, you might want to reconsider it. And check the notes, check what's big. Again, watch episode 1, check what the top builds have. If you see brands all over the place, go for it. But I haven't had much success with great brand builds. There's going to be someone out there saying, well, if you do this, this, and this, it can work. But I don't see it in the top builds right now, and I've never seen it in any season. I've only done a few seasons, but I wouldn't get too into the brands. I'm sorry if that's what you're doing right now. You could probably maximize it. You probably get into level 90 something with a good brand build, but I've just never had much success with it for what it's worth. Okay. A few other things. There's some things that convert damage types, like physical to lightning. I've seen some videos that show the math behind that, and sometimes it makes it from a multiplier to an additive damage. And this could be corrected over time, but just be careful when doing that. Always use path of building to verify whether your alteration is going to make a difference, because you might not be getting the damage you expect out of it. So, and if you don't see it on a lot of top builds, that's probably why. So be careful when converting damage types. There's usually a reason for it when the pros do it. So always double check before getting too involved in that. Otherwise, your build's just going to be kind of gimpy. Anyways, that's gems. And I'm going to get my gear set up again, and I'm going to go fight a boss, and we'll see how I'll just show you the gem I'm going to showcase here. It's called, I might have shown this before, and this is an unusual one. This just happens to be on my character. And you'll notice the duration affects this gem, okay? I'm sure everyone else has some other combo they're doing. I've added duration to this here, and we're going to see how that affects a fight in the future. So I'll see you in a moment. Okay, we're here at the next boss tier in the waste pool. This is a tier 6 map this season. Don't know if I can kill it. I got some unspent skill points here, just to put it in perspective. It's going to be another episode or two before I really have a good character. This might be a complete wipe fest. But before we go and wipe, or maybe get lucky here, one small thing. When I was talking about the cast when damage taken spell earlier, just bear in mind, a lot of people don't maximize the skill points in that. The cast when damage taken itself or whatever it's activating are going to be lower levels. So just want to reiterate that. Quite common in quite a bit of builds. And of course, if you're a strength class, not a big deal, but for other classes, something to point out. And another thing too is there's a support gem called Arrogance, and As mentioned before, with vitality, clarity, and precision, you can reserve life, and it's a fixed amount. So arrogance can be a little bit difficult to use when using like 25-50% of your life. But when it's a fixed amount and you have tons of life anyways, arrogance is a support gem worth considering in that case. But anyways, without further ado, it's time to play Roll for Mageblood and, of course, Roll for Headhunter, and we'll get several here. And I'm going to do a reaction video for winning the lottery because it's going to happen right now. That's a nice belt, but I guess no reaction video to... Ooh, that's not a bad one either. Nothing great here. Oh well, one of these times we'll get it. So time to go wipe with this crappy build and see how this works. We done this? Oh, okay. I think I might have even done this fight in the campaign. Oh well, we'll see how it works. I leveled up a few gems. I actually found quite a few heavy belts and leather belts on the way to this boss here. We've gained half a level since the start of the episode, but I did die a few times too on some maps, some very difficult content, and I hopefully don't die here. If you get some bad resists or something, or it's immune to something, I don't have immunity to all this, like corrupted blood, poison, stuff like that still are very bad for me. So like all this poison on the floor can't be good. I don't even know if I have the right Pantheon set up. Okay, let's do this, and we'll do a delayed hit. Let's check out this. This is such an interesting spell, as you saw earlier, right? With the duration. Here, I'm going to exert it and then wait and see what happens. See if that reaches him. Oh, I got a big chunk, but that's basically how that spell works. I'm going to work on it, make it... See, the problem is the longer the duration, the more damage it does, but if, you know, the monster could be way off from the target by the time it actually hits them. So you got to kind of make sure they're in the radius of it. I've already done this map before, so it's not going to get me an Atlas point, but I think we might get through it here, despite all this poison. One more, and I think it's good. There we go. All right. Not the greatest of drops, but we're another half level up, and maybe we'll be in the high 80s by next episode. And yeah, no mage blood. Oh well. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode on gems, gem basics, just things to look for in gems. Again, always check out Path of Exile's website. Check out the top ladder builds if you want to know what's popular this season, the best gems of the season. They're not always balanced every year, so you'll want to use that as a resource as well. And hopefully you enjoyed the episode, and I will see you next week.